Hello, good evening. Who's that? Farah, is it?
This is Farah. How are you?
I'm well, Farah. How are you?
Good, thank you.
That's good. Just there we go. How is everybody this evening?
Oh, very well. How has your week been
Not too
so
bad,
far?
thank you. Very, very wet actually. Up
Ah,
here.
good.
We had flash flooding everywhere.
Oh, okay,
Still feeling
yeah.
the effects of all of that. I think you had it and sent it our way. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'd invite you all to put your video on if you are willing to do that. We can have a gallery view of everybody then, otherwise to unmute yourself. But let me get started on tonight's webinar by welcoming you all to our first Student Coach Mentoring webinar for 2018. This is a series that we'll have for the next 10 months, and we'll cover a lot of the key concepts relating to each of the units in turn. So tonight I've got about 5 key concepts that I think would be very useful to share with you. But before we do that, I'd like to have some introductions. So if we can go back a little bit and possibly just introduce ourselves. I'll just call on you perhaps by name. Farah, since you're on the ball, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit to the group?
Sure. My name is Farah and I live in Melbourne. I have 2 children. Just recently moved from Sydney, actually. I have an MBA in finance. That's my background. But recently I started feeling that, I was meant to do much more than that. I did not feel very comfortable being in that office environment and being stuck in that rut kind of thing. So, and I realized that, my true calling lies somewhere else. And so then I started researching into counseling. And from there, I stumbled upon life coaching. I never knew what it was. And then I found out, and then I was introduced to Suzanne and this beautiful institute. And so I'm loving every minute of it. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. And Farah and I have been chatting about a friend of yours, and you've been looking ahead, haven't you, to do some coaching with your friend?
Yes, I have. Yeah, thank you.
That's good. Darren, would you like to introduce yourself? I don't think we've connected before, except I think briefly once.
Yeah, hi everyone, it's Darren here. I hope you can hear me okay.
No, a little bit louder if you can, please, Darren.
Okay, where's the volume control?
You're just calling in, are you, on audio?
Yes, I am.
We might leave you, see what you can do. You right?
Someone to have a chat, and I'll see if I can raise the volume.
Go ahead then, Darren. We can work out what you're saying, I'm sure.
Is that any better?
Yes, much, much better.
Okay, just let me know if there's too much distortion or something. Yeah, I'm just using a really basic mic. I apologise. Yeah, my name's Darren. I'm from Perth, and hi everyone. There's some sort of similarities with Farah's story. I have been in IT for about 15 years, and I was pretty much getting bored of that in a sort of a technical role. So I was fortunate enough to have a family member who's been an organisational coach for about 25 years, and I went and saw him, and conversation started from there. And then I went over to I guess a professional career coach, and that just started the whole journey. And it's sort of narrowed things down to coaching, teaching, training, that sort of thing. So here I am. It's a new area of stage of life, I guess. But I'm very much trying to move forward in a direction that I think is congruent with who I am, rather than just what I think I was good at in the past. If that makes sense.
And you still are good at that.
Yeah, it's just very boring.
That's right. So I look forward to having more conversations with you when I go to Perth in June. To have that professional.
Sure, that'll be good.
Anna, hello, how are you? You there, Anna?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sorry, I was pressing the wrong button there.
That's all right.
Hi, yeah, I'm really well, thanks to answer your question. So yeah, I'm Anna, I'm in Brisbane. Sounds like we're representing all of the capital cities around the country. I've been doing HR for the last 10 years or so. Sounds like we're representing all the professional services as well.
Well,
And realised that the part of my role that really gave me a buzz at the end of the day was when I was coaching staff. Sorry if you can hear a cat in the background. She's decided to join. Yeah, so realised there was this thing called professional coaching and decided to look into it. And yeah, here I am at the very beginning of my diploma. Yeah, and really looking forward to working with you all and learning so much from everyone.
thank you, Anna. Yeah, that resonates with me too, because I was working in organisations, working with CEOs and senior people, and thinking, my goodness, you know, they really haven't got their own act together, be it performance-wise or personal-wise. And so the coaching that I was doing with them, executive coaching in this case, was just really spot on for me. So I think you won't regret, Anna, having taken this route and adding coaching skills to your HR capacity. And we also have somebody else on the phone. I'm not sure who that is. Oh, Joe, Joe, can I call on you, first of all? You there, Joe? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Can
you
you
hear me
speak up a
okay?
little bit, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jo. I'm based in Brisbane. I've probably been the most truant student of Suzanne for some time.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to, well, I've recommitted to finalising my participation. Like a couple of other people on the call, I really enjoy mentoring and coaching staff, and I often get asked for advice. And so my interest in doing this course was really to actually give me some frameworks and toolkits that I could work with, that I didn't feel like I was just freewheeling along. So I'm looking forward to finalising my diploma this financial year.
That's a great target, and I applaud you, and we're here to help and support you to go as fast as you can, basically. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure who's on the phone. Can I unmute you?
Susan, I think it's me. It's Jo. I think I've registered twice.
Okay, that's all right then, Joe. All right, so there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us on the call, which is fine. All right, so tonight will be a mix of me talking to you about, I think, 5 essential concepts right from the beginning of the course, but these are really essential for any sort of coaching that you will do. I don't want to rub them in, but I do want to rub them in, if you know what I mean, because I think that if you can get these concepts, then you really got the basis of great rapport happening with your clients. So the first one is to have a look at what we're here for tonight, and it's about our intention. So I don't know if you remember, I spoke to a lot of you before you come on the course even about what's your intention about coaching? What are you coming on board for? Is it to help yourself? Is it to help others? Is it to make a lot of money? What is it for? But it's important what your intention is for, and it's only when our intention is heartfelt and really looking not only to help ourselves but to help others that we're really welcoming you to our coaching community. And that's the commonality, the common stream with all of our students. So what we have is a conscious intention for the student coach mentoring webinars to actually help you to develop your skills even further. That's the intended outcome. You always have a choice, because as you know, tonight is not a compulsory. These webinars are not compulsory. They're only there if you want to come and have some extra conversations about these concepts and to look at some practical examples as we go through, but not just yet. We'll look at some practice triads as well with coaching. When you get up to the coaching skills and the steps in the coaching process, we'll practice those. So there's only one word for it, and that's practice, practice, practice. And the more you practice, the more you're going to get comfortable with doing what you do. It's amazing. I think Christine, is Christine, are you in here somewhere? Christine, I saw you register somewhere. No? We've got Adele. Adele, how are you? Let me on YouTube. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you back, Adele.
Thank you.
Adele's been with us for quite a while too, Joe, and she's attended a couple of our workshops. So it's, as I say, practice keeps you coming back for more and more and more. Adele's, I think, on her final 6 months as well. Is that right, Adele?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so counting down, which is really good. Okay, but at any time in the webinar, please unmute yourself and say, look, I want to have a chat, or what does that mean, please? So it's supposed to be an interactive thing, but I'll just keep going until such time as I might call on you, or you can unmute yourself. So the first unit is about understanding human psychology and the basis of coaching. We come from a very positive psychology approach, and as you know, I'm the psychologist in the team. My background in psychology has been, I have a master's of org psych. I've worked in counselling centres, family relationship centres, where we've looked at things that are fairly traumatic from a counselling point of view, like sexual abuse and family domestic violence, etc. And that was another reason for choosing coaching, because you can only do that traumatic counselling for so long. Whereas I really enjoyed working with people on the front foot and taking them forward into their lives. So from a coaching perspective, we're using psychology concepts to help people with their people skills, to help them understand themselves a lot more, which is the second unit, and we'll talk about that next month, but to help others and try and get into the same framework with others to develop that rapport. So tonight I want to talk about these things: limiting beliefs, unconditional positive regard, developing discrepancy, pessimism versus optimism, and how to roll with the resistance. So I hope that's going to be of interest to you. We'll work at each of those at a time. So first of all, identifying the limiting belief, or sometimes it's a negative belief. Here's an example, and then I'm going to give you something to think about in the next slide. So I'm not good at anything. So a client walks through the door, they're feeling quite dejected, they're looking quite sombre, they're trying to do something they haven't been able to do for a while. And they've tried and they've failed. And as we know from when you get to Unit 3, the NLP unit, there's no such thing as failure, it's just feedback. But of course, they're saying to you, I'm not good at anything. So what your job is as a coach is to reframe that into a positive. So you might say, yes, so-and-so, I agree with you. You might not be good at, say, swimming, but you might be very good at, say, cycling. I was just watching all the Winter Olympics and the bobsledding and things like that, and the young lass who won 2 gold medals. She certainly had a very positive approach. There was no negative about her. So the minute you can put people into that positive framework, the more they can step into that space. It's amazing where the mind goes and how you start to think positively. You can start putting affirmations on the fridge. You can get up every morning and say, it's going to be a great day today. And you can applaud 3 things at night before you go to bed that make you feel positive. That's that PERMA approach. And then the coach will then reward and affirm and reinforce the fact that they're good at cycling, or they're good at singing, or they're good at sailing, or whatever it is they're good at, because that's the basis then of small things. From little acorns, great big trees grow. And so you want them to know what their truth is and what the belief is, and have the knowledge about themselves and that self-awareness, but not to restrict themselves by what they're thinking. So here's a situation for you. This person comes into your coaching room and says, there's a position I can apply for at work. It may mean working longer hours. I could apply, but I'd be too embarrassed if I didn't get it. Besides, I'm too young and inexperienced. No, I won't apply. Okay, so I'd like somebody to talk to me about what is that limiting belief that's going to hold that person back from getting that promotion. So would someone like to unmute yourself and give me a thought?
Perhaps I feel the limiting belief here is that they feel that they won't be able to get it. And I feel a sense of low self-efficacy here as well, because they say that they're too inexperienced. So they feel that they don't have the right skills to get the job. And the fact that that fear that it's a limiting belief, that fear that what will happen if other people find out that I didn't get it, and that just really holds you back. And something that I like to share here, because I sort of grew up with that belief. So whenever I thought I would fail at something, I wouldn't even try it because I would be too embarrassed if other people found out. And so it took a long time, and I'm still struggling to get out of that, but it can really be a very limiting belief for sure. It can really hold you back.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Farah. And can I say that if you cannot get through this part with your client, you won't be able to take them any further. You've got to knock these beliefs on the head, which is why it's in the first unit, pretty quickly, and show them how they can do something, and ask them then to do a little task before they come to you next time, and or to tell you or text you when they've done it. So what we've got is a limiting belief that says something like, I can't possibly get that promotion, I'm too junior, I haven't got enough experience, for goodness sake, you know? So this is what they think is holding them back, and it is holding them back. So I'd like someone now to unmute yourself and tell me what a positive belief might be coming from that limiting belief.
I don't know if I'm going to head down the right track on this one, but if I was sitting with this person having this conversation, perhaps one question I might ask is, okay, we've established that you know, you feel embarrassed about not getting the job or what other people might think. So we might explore that initially. So that's part of the objection. The next stage would be, well, let's just put that aside for a second and perhaps look further down the track. And let's just say you did go for the position. How would you feel? And how would you see things if you did actually get that position? And perhaps what are some of the things you might think related to getting that position if that was the case? So I guess it's kind of trying to look at it creatively, so they're putting themselves in a position of you know, getting that position, and what are some of the real sort of things that may lend to getting themselves to that point.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you, Darren, is that there's some questions there as a coach that you would be asking. What I think you need to do first is turn that into a positive. So I really need someone to give me a positive out of all this. So he's saying I can't get the promotion. What's the positive from that?
Yeah, I was really thinking about, okay, we've obviously established the negative, and now let's look at some of the possibilities, real possibilities for the positive, and then start moving towards that reframing side of things.
Okay. So Adele, give me the positive.
I think the positive is that it's an opportunity, that there is a position available, and that they might be able to work those longer hours. So they're both positive things. And if they were to get it, then they're young, and that's like, it might be a tribute to how wonderful, and it'll mean more experiences for them.
Can I give you a clue? What's the opposite of I can't?
I can
I can. Okay. So what's the positive belief? I can
get that promotion.
get that promotion. Okay. Now you've got to get this part in first, Darren, before you start asking other questions. You've got to get the client to say, I can get that promotion. And then there's probably some conditions. If I address all the selection criteria with the right examples, right? Because yes, you're a junior. Yes, you don't have enough experience. But just maybe if you address the selection criteria with some good examples, you might get a look in, right? And then you start working with the client. But the first step is to turn that can't into a can, okay? Then if we were to ask some powerful questions, and we'll get into powerful questions down the track, but let me give you a heads up on what that might look like. If you did get that promotion, what would you have done to deserve it? Now, a powerful question causes people to think, causes them to stop, and then it could causes them to say, well, if I did deserve it, I would have, done all the right things, got the right experience, and put all the right examples on my resume, etc., etc. Okay? So we're not just talking ordinary stuff here, we're talking extraordinary ways of coaching people so they can get what they want in life. Is that okay? All right. Shall we move on?
Yep.
So let's look at the second concept, which is unconditional positive regard. Now, this is Carl Rogers. It comes back from, I think, the 1950s. But it really is how we, as a coach, approach our clients. We approach them with that total acceptance of the person, just as they are. Strengths, weaknesses, mistakes, they act positively and at times they act negatively. So what we do is, I'll come back to that, we have unconditional positive regard when we respect the individual, but not necessarily the inappropriate behaviour. So we accept them as a person. We don't actually accept all the behaviours because some of them may be prejudicial to others or to themselves. It may be causing them to have conflict in their life, etc. And it's the behaviours that we work with, because coaching is about, first of all, generating self-awareness and insight, and then it's about helping people create different ways of behaving. So if you look at the diagram, you've got an incongruent person here where their self-image and their ideal image do not overlap very much. So the self-image is different. How they see themselves is different from how others see them. Only a little bit of overlap. Whereas the congruent person, there's a lot of overlap. Their self-image is pretty much the same as what they portray to the world. Okay, there's much more overlap, and the person is really self-actualizing, as Maslow would say. So that's the whole notion of regarding the person, but not necessarily the behaviours, because we work with their behaviours. So here's a situation. You've got someone who walks into your coaching room, unannounced, with no appointment. He, it could be a she, sits down opposite you at your desk to say you're working away, and he reaches for a cigarette. So, what's that look like to you? From a conditional regard, if you had unconditional positive regard for that client, how would you approach that person? What would you say to that person? Anybody?
So it's about recognizing that the behavior of coming in unannounced and smoking a cigarette, whilst that you might find that objectionable, that's a behavior. It's not a reflection of the person and their potential.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's about recognizing that first, even though your initial reaction might not be so diplomatic.
Exactly. And Jo, you had an opinion as well?
Oh, it's just, yeah, look, it's very similar. I guess everyone would approach it in their own unique way. I guess recognition that, that they've sought you out and so forth, but then just calling out the behaviours that work for you to actually have that conversation so that you can create an awareness that, basically the terms in which you wish to engage, and perhaps coming in without an appointment and smoking, two things that don't really work for you.
Okay, so there are good answers. There are two answers to this one. There's the conditional regard, which is saying something like, I only coach people who make appointments, which is a condition. You've got to make an appointment to be coached, and who don't smoke in my room. So that could be something that you say, and that would be very diplomatic. The unconditional could be that, this man has an issue that I can help him with. If you were truly unconditional, I'd let him know that he needs to make an appointment next time, which you coach him this time, and I'll tell him now that he can smoke outside, because if you do have that condition, you can put that on the behaviour, right, but not on the person. So that response is demonstrating, I think, how you regard the person as a fine person, someone who's worthy of being coached, but you don't accept that behaviour. And you can set boundaries and limits like that if you wish. And particularly if he's come in to get help with smoking, that's another thing that you can put there to him. So what's a powerful question that you could say to him? Just say you've accepted him, you've done some coaching with him. What could you say to him at the end of a coaching session to prepare him for the next time? And Chantel, I see you've joined us. Would you like to have a go at this one? No? Anyone else? Okay, let me have a try for you. You could say, what can you do before next time? So we'll spend all of our time focusing on your issue. Okay? So you're setting it up so that next time he makes an appointment and he has finished his cigarette before he comes in to see you. Okay? Any other comments on that one? All right, let's keep on going. Another thing that we do is develop discrepancy with the client, and this is about bringing that self-awareness to their consciousness. so that they can see what they're doing and is that moving them forward or not. So coaches help clients appreciate the value of change by exploring the discrepancy between how clients want their lives to be versus how they currently are, or between their deeply held values and their day-to-day behaviour. So it's calling it, basically, just as we did in the previous one, about what they're looking for. This is a self-discrepancy theory. So if you look at the left-hand side, the actual self, there's a discrepancy oftentimes between our ideal self and what we think we ought to be doing, which is where we come up with our fears and anxieties and things like that. The ideal self, if we don't have it, can lead to some negative consequences. So, you know, if we think we should be the best and we should be living up to everyone's expectations, we get unhappy, we get disappointed, so do they, we get dissatisfied with life, and we end up never quite liking ourselves because we're trying to live up to someone else's ideal, not our own ideal. And we're living out on the basis of fear or anxiety. Whereas what we're really trying to do is become our authentic self. And our authentic self is where those two circles we saw before collide, where what you see is what you get. And so there's that mirror that's held up to you. And whenever someone sees you, they get the same person every time, no matter what. And they know and they trust you because they can see what's likely to have happen. It's difficult if one day you're a perfect gentleman, for example, and the next day you're a cad. It just doesn't wash very well. So developing that discrepancy is an important part of the coaching process, which means then that the clients can say, oh, if I'm going to actually send my child to private school, perhaps I should start saving some money. If I wanted to go on that mountain wheel holiday, I should start saving some money. How am I going to do it? So you're always looking for what the client is saying and what they're doing and what's the difference between the two. So here's a little question for you. What's the question that would evoke self-awareness and insight in this situation? There's a client who earns a good salary, lives in a big house, drives a fancy car, but contributes little to the local community. But he certainly believes he should be president of the local football club. However, this position went to a rival who is very socially oriented, and he only drives trucks for a living. He can't understand why. So, what can we do with this client? How can we bring about the discrepancy, and what is the discrepancy there? Who'd like to have a go at that?
Could we ask why he wants to be a president of the football club? And that might sort of go to whether if it's a prestige thing, and which seems to be reflected in a lot of his other decisions, and that might reveal that discrepancy.
Can I caution you against asking why questions? And the reason why is because it can lead to people blaming others, giving a reason for it, and why they can't do something different, denying or justifying. Okay? We don't want to give them a reason to do all those sorts of things. So instead of asking a why question, I'd ask you if you could turn that around to perhaps a what question. All right?
Oh,
So Anna or someone wants to
So maybe what is it that you would what is it that you would benefit from being the president?
Yes. What is it that interests you about being the president? What is it that you can see yourself doing, or a how question is always good. What or how? How can you see yourself contributing? Jo, you've got some thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's already been said, Susan. Sorry, I unmuted early.
Okay. Any, Sarah?
Yeah, and maybe we could also ask him that what does he think that a president, like what's his image of what the role of the president of the local football club is? What does he think that the president of the football club, the qualities he should have, the work that he should be doing? So basically for him to define that role so he can see if he's really reflecting that role or not.
And if he really wants to have that role as well. Good
Yes.
point. Okay.
Yeah, I think I was sort of on Farah's line of thought is also, I understand that he's said that he can't understand why, but when you really think about it, like you could ask questions like, what might you think are some of the reasons why the presidency has gone to the other person? And on a practical level, if you can get him to a point to discuss, he might look at other people and see why they value this other person that's got the presidency. That might be a way of looking at his question as to why.
Yeah, it could be, what is it that about this other person?
Yeah, like, you know, the positive stuff about this other person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chantal?
Yeah, I was going along the same tact, and he said he can't understand why. And the question I would have posed is possibly along the lines of, what are you currently doing within the community to get exposure for the people in the football club to see that you do want this role as well? Because at the moment he seems like he might be just quite disconnected from the community at large anyway.
And it might be, what are you doing for the community at this point in time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Adele?
I was thinking, what can he do as, not as president, but in a presidential type of, like, what would he do now instead of as a president? What can he do to assist the president currently, or what could he do to get the position next year?
Good point. Let me come back to you, Adele, because here's the discrepancy, right? He sees himself as a big man, but others don't see it that way. They don't see how he contributes to the community, but rather they can see him contributing to himself. Okay? So what's a powerful question? And I'll come back to you, Adele. How could you phrase what you were saying as a powerful question that would help that man see that there's something different he needs to do? And what might it be?
I guess, what can you do to be seen in the way to get the president role next time?
Mm-hmm.
Or I know that's pretty superficial, but he's,
well, let's poke on that. That's a build on that.
In that way.
Anyone else? Jo?
I was just going to say, is it, you know, what actions does he see that he could take to actually work towards that goal?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, well, here comes a powerful question. If you were to run again, powerful questions really provoke thought, okay, and get him thinking out of the box. If you were to run again next year, and it's what you're saying, Adele, it's a little bit more upmarket basically from what you're saying, what would you need to do in the next 12 months to make a significant difference to how people in the community see you? Okay? Is that a powerful question? Is that something that's going to get him thought to thinking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm priming you early, because this doesn't come until about Unit 6 or something. But I'm really trying to prime you to think beyond to, okay, the what, where, why, how, and who are great questions. You know, all of those ones that the newspaper articles ask. We can ask all those. It's when you get into things like what ifs, and you'll learn about that in Unit 3, which is the NLP stuff. What would happen if we could wave a magic wand? And Chantal and Adele, you know about this. Barry, you probably have done this as well. When you get to this unit, think about those what if we could imagine. So it's taking people deep into themselves to think about what would they have to do something really, really different that would be significant. And what you'll see is people stop, and you'll see them thinking, and they may not answer you straight away because they're thinking about it, which is the exact response you want, okay? So that's just a little bit on powerful questioning. Here's the fourth concept that I had you to look at, and really in this first unit. This is about learned helplessness. We can be helpless because we think we're not good enough, or we can't do it, and no one's going to help us, and all the rest, blah, blah, blah. This is why you don't ask why, because people can go into the depths of, oh, it wasn't my fault, or I didn't have the information, or I didn't know what to do, or no one told me. So there's no good reason for asking the why question. There's good reasons for asking what, how, when, where, who. I won't labour that anymore. So here's the questions. How long will the situation last? To how many areas of my life does it apply? And for what part of the situation am I responsible? Now, this last question is really very powerful in itself, because people think, oh, this is happening to me, or I've got stuck in this job, or here I am, look at what's happened to me. You know, they're externalizing the blame. They very rarely then think to look at what part did I play in this? So, for example, if you've got a difficult marriage or you've got a difficult boss, what part did you play in getting yourself into that marriage? You know, you are a willing partner in that process. So you have to actually acknowledge the part that you played. Any comments on that before we go to a scenario? Okay, let's go to a scenario then. Here's a situation. The client comes in. He's becoming more dispirited every day in his job. He's losing his technical expertise. Perhaps he's an IT person, Darren, as he gets overwhelmed by mountains of paperwork every day. This is my son. He's an IT person, getting more into management every day, and every day he hates it more because he's losing his touch. This person doesn't feel proud of anything he does anymore. He used to make a difference, but now, he doesn't make a difference. He's not feeling like he's getting anywhere. So let's have a look at those questions. So the first one is, how long will this situation last? So any answers to that? Anybody?
Sorry, are you asking? Is
Anna?
this what we'd be asking?
Yes, you'd ask the client, Anna. So you ask the client.
Well, I guess, yeah, it's sort of getting him to realise that it's as long as he wants it to last. He's got the power to make it his whole life, or he's got the power to find something new tomorrow, or to make a change of some description.
Exactly. So and so let's say he says, oh, it's going to last forever if I don't do something about it. And so you might ask the question too. So if you don't do something about it, how is this going to be for you in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months time? It's going to be same old, isn't it? So you've got to get into a point of saying, well, perhaps I do need to do something about this. So the second question is, to how many areas of my life does this apply? To how many areas do I feel dispirited about, despondent about, not getting anywhere? How about you, Joe?
So just catching that apart. So sorry, I just want to get clear on the question. So am I responding as if I'm him?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay. It's happening everywhere. It's not only. Yeah. Beg your pardon?
It's happening everywhere, is it?
Yeah.
Everywhere in his work.
In his life.
Oh, in his life.
Well, because it will,
Well,
yeah, family. So, I'm more dispirited every day in my job. It's impacting my relationships with my family, with my friends, how I relate to myself. It's having a greater impact than what I thought.
Okay, so you've taken it further than my answer.
Oh, sorry.
but that's true, and that's true. The impact is further. It's further. Mm-hmm. I only feel this bad when I'm at work. However, as you say, the impact on others in your life means that you go home and you're not as chatty perhaps, and you don't feel as well, or you might start to get sick or something like that. So it can actually, the impact can be felt further than where it's actually happening. Okay. Third question, for what part of the situation am I responsible? Who's going to have an answer to that if you were the client? No?
I think there would be that light bulb moment where it's me. I'm responsible. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it is that light bulb moment that it says, hey.
I was thinking it was going to be none of it. It's somebody else's. It's still external.
If it's external, yes, you've got to go back.
Yeah.
Right? And it's only when you get to that light bulb moment that Adele was talking about, it's like, oh my goodness, it is me. I did make this. I did apply for this job. I did work hard to get it. I guess I never thought it would be this way. And what can I do? So it's only when you get to that turning point of what can I do about it that you really got the client on side and ready to make some changes in his life. Uh-huh.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah, go for it.
So what if, so this is the ideal situation is the light bulb moment, obviously. What if the client turns around and he says that I really need this job to pay the bills and that's why I'm stuck here. So he just starts blaming all those things, right? And he feels that like this is the only thing he's got. So he's sort of stuck in it. He doesn't want to be. So then what do you do?
Any suggestions from anybody?
You'd explore alternatives.
Yeah.
Such as? Chantel?
I was looking at exploring his role a little bit further as well. And so whether there would be options to get him back in touch, or whether the mountains of paperwork that he's being overwhelmed by are something that he's more put on himself. Personal experience, I know that we can all kind of become a little bit narrow-sighted, so I'd like to try and expand his visions of his role again to see whether there were other ways, or whether he's just simply missing something in his job at the moment that could be adjusted.
Okay, that's a very rational approach. That's fine. If we've taken it more of an emotional approach, could you say to him something like, okay, client, if this continues, how are you going to feel in a couple of weeks, 3 months' time? And explore that with him. And he might say, well, I'm not going to get any better. I'm not going to feel any better. I'm going to feel the same. And I might say to him, well, what about in 6 months' time? Would you feel the same? Or would you feel better, or would you feel worse? And he might say, oh, I think in 6 months I'd probably be feeling much, much worse. So I'd take him down the road gradually to try and look at the scenarios down the track for him if he chooses not to do anything, okay? And then go into the rational approach by looking at his options that Adela was talking about and Chantel. Because until you can get into the point of awareness, self-awareness that, hey, unless I do something, I'm going to be sitting here still in 6 months and being more and more dispirited perhaps, and not liking myself and not liking the family. And if, as Joe was saying, that the family is impacting, maybe, you know, my wife is going to leave me or something if I don't do something, because that's the other way to go. Is if you're in a situation where you think the person needs to move and they're not moving, then maybe you can suggest talking with the partner or the manager, have them in on the conversation, particularly if it's a spouse that you can bring into the conversation, to then look at the impact at home. And if he doesn't change or doesn't come to some arrangement, then she's going to leave him or something bad will happen. And the same with his job. If he continues down this path and is not getting success in his job, is he going to be demoted or perhaps not have a job any longer? Or if there's a restructure, is he going to be out the door? So you might have to actually provoke some scenarios, if you know what I mean, without what might happen if, or how would that be for you if your work started to diminish or you weren't doing such a good job. How would that be for you? What would be the likely outcome of it? So until you get into that point of turning and saying, okay, I better do something about it now, you really got nowhere to go with your coaching. And that's why this lot is in the first set of units as well, first unit, because these are basic to moving forward with the client and having them do something different. Are there any questions about that before we continue?
Suzanne, is it worth, in this particular case, if it goes down that route where he's a bit despondent, is it worth looking at limiting beliefs again? As in, I mean, this job is the only job I can do, or there's no way I could get another job, or, you know, those sorts of beliefs.
Very good. Very good thought. Very good thought. So look at those and then try and turn it around and get a positive something happening. So, for example, if he's lose touch with his IT, maybe he might want to do a course of study that would pull him back in, for example, or into something like security IT, which is, you know, huge and burgeoning in the next few years. So there's ways maybe to pull him out of that. Yeah. Okay, so that brings me to the next one and the last one, which is about rolling with the resistance. Now, sometimes you can't get the client to move the first time. They're very reluctant. They don't want to change. So what your job is as a coach is to treat that resistance as natural rather than pathological. I mean, no one wants to change, really. You know, we all want to do the same things over and over again. Why? Because, here I'm doing the why. The reason is that we start to develop routines. In our brain, we develop patterns and pathways in our brain, and neural pathways give us routines. Like we know when we get up in the morning, what we're going to do. We're going to put the kettle on, we're going to put some toast on, whatever. We do it without thinking. And so our mind needs to have routines, because otherwise we'd be spending all of our time reconstructing every single minute of our day. So to change our pattern, to change our routine, causes us to think and have to behave in a different way and to lay down different neural pathways. Now, when we're young, it's easy to lay down different neural pathways because young kids are always learning. As we get older, it's a bit more difficult. I was going to say much more. Sometimes it is much more difficult. Or we need a bit more preparation to lay down different neural pathways. And what we want to do then is make sure that the client has enough preparation time, enough space, enough resources, etc., to take them away from conflict and confusion into collaboration and communication, which is about, once again, going back to building rapport with the client. Okay, it all comes down to how you communicate, how you respect them, how you can work with them as individuals to actually listen to their story and just sit with them and develop rapport. So let's look at a scenario. The client is a new manager of a small work team. He's only been there 6 weeks and has identified ways to improve processes and procedures. But every time he tries to make changes, the team resists, or they say yes and do nothing different. He's tried every tactic he knows to get them on board with even just little changes, but nothing seems to work. So what is the cause of the resistance? What do you think is happening? What's the reason why people don't want to make any changes at all? Anybody?
Oh, one of the most common or natural things in the workplace is change involves work, extra work.
Yep, extra work for a lot of people, doing things differently.
Yep.
Why, Farah?
And also maybe that he's new, he's only been there for 6 weeks, so the team doesn't want to accept that too easily because they think they know better.
Okay, maybe that's a reason too. Good. Jo?
I was on a similar theme. I was going to say because he's only been there 6 weeks, that perhaps he hasn't built up credibility with the team, so he is not seen as an authority or knowledgeable, and so therefore, he needs to build that rapport and really understand and gain a connection with the team to build that trust. So.
I agree with your last part. I'm not sure about putting the expertise and credibility first, but the last part is gaining that trust.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the trust that's not there. They don't know the manager. He's only been there 6 weeks. They don't trust him. They don't know where he's from, whether he's here for them or whether he's here for himself. Because sometimes managers come and go and they're just there for the promotion. And as Farah was saying, sometimes it's just safer to stay with the routine, isn't it? It's just what we know, and we're comfortable with it. So what's the answer? What's a powerful question that you could ask from your coaching to actually turn this situation around for the new manager and give him a potential way to think about? What could you ask as a coach?
What is something that you can do to build trust with the team, and perhaps put because he might be very keen as a new manager to get wins on the board, to use a phrase, very quickly. And so maybe explore that belief that perhaps there's, what is a more reasonable time to make some changes.
Good one. And Jo, you've got...
my thoughts were that, what can he do to try and connect with his team on a more personal level? So get to know, who they are as individual people, what their fears and concerns are, so that then he's got that input that he can then work with. At the moment, he doesn't have that input.
Yeah, that's good. So I was thinking along the same lines. And it's a little bit up from what you were saying, Anna. From what you know of the team members so far, right, what would you say would be the best way to show them that you're on their side? So you're not there to show your expertise and have your credibility built up. You're there to say, I'm one of you guys. I'm on your side. I'm with you. I hear you. Okay? And out of that will come some options and some strategies for him to, take them down the pub for lunch or something like that, or just sit with them one-on-one and have a conversation with them. Because, at the moment he's been presumably pretty busy looking at processes and procedures. Has he actually sat down and talked with each member of his team yet? And that's the basis for trust, and that's the basis for building rapport. So when you're working with a client, what you always have to ask them, or I suggest you always ask them, is how are you going with the members of your family or your team? When did you last talk with them? What sort of conversation did you have? Was it just surface level, or did it go deeper? Do you know the names of your team members' partners? Do you know anything about their lives? Not that you want to pry, and you can't ask, but you can't ask directly, but you can ask how's things going with you. What sort of sporting activity, are you engaged in any sporting activities? What sort of social activities do you like to engage in, that sort of thing. So you always got to be careful that you don't pry into their life because of privacy reasons. But there's a way to ask, what's happening for you this weekend? How did your session go with the cricket or whatever? So think about the what, where, why, when and how questions to get to know them a little better, but then start with some of the powerful questions once you're getting into coaching with them. Okay, so that's the end for me, but before we conclude, I'd just like to get a word from each of you about how you found the webinar tonight, and if there's anything that was significant to you or anything that we missed and we should put into next time. So let me go to, I think, Darren. Hang on a minute. Where are we? I'll start with Adele. How about you, Adele?
I think there was a little bit of background noise at one stage, and sorry, I know it's just a more procedural type of thing, but I don't know that everyone was muted or when you were talking, and that kind of affected because I've got earphones in.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, Chantel.
Yeah, I apologise for being late. I read the email, and the email said Australian Eastern Standard Time, and then I realised that the actual webinar said Canberra, Melbourne, and somewhere else time. So I just got my times a bit skewish. So sorry about that. But the end part that I did get was fine, and I could hear everything good as well.
Great, thank you. And we'll congratulate Chantel. She has just graduated. Well done on you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good feeling.
Yeah, that's right. Very good feeling. Farah, how about you?
I really liked the way it was structured, and having done all the theory and everything, so I think it was very beneficial to have a very practical approach to what we've learned, and being exposed to different situations, and then getting on that thinking pattern. So I thought it was extremely beneficial from that perspective.
Thank you. Jo, how about you?
I thought it was really good because I like the interaction with us as participants, because I guess that you do learn from everybody else, and you've got to think on your feet as well. We're applying those learnings, so I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anna?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly that that's really added some depth to the study. I've only just started in the last month or so, so really love that we're able to all interact. We're not just sort of sitting at a screen and being passive, and there's the opportunity to make some mistakes and in a safe environment. So I really didn't know what to expect. So and I'm really stoked. So thank you.
That's good. Thank you. And Darren?
Just pretty much paraphrasing what people are saying. It's good to go through the modules and then rehash it. Sort of live and go through some scenarios. The question I have is, say for the next webinar, is it based on the next module? So if we prepare for it, we're sort of on the same track.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So Unit 2 will be the next one, which is about you and communication, assertiveness, stress, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So you don't have to prepare for it, but if you want to, that's up to you as well. Yeah. All right, and there's the dates for the following webinars. So they are all at Eastern Standard Time. So yes, in Queensland, Chantel, it's a 6 o'clock start until I think Easter is when daylight saving ends, and then we revert back to 7 p.m. But it's just safest that way somehow. Thank you everybody for your attendance, for your comments, for your participation. I really appreciate that. There will be a recording of this. If you would like, I can send it through to you. Is that something that you'd like, or you're just happy to leave it?
No, I'd like that. Thank you very much. A recording of this session.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so all right, I'll get the link sent through to you,
Thank you.
and then you can download and keep that if you wish. Okay, so I'll say good night to you. We'll stop the recording and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.